Hello, the Historical Gamer here, and today we're going to be discussing some fan games. Now these fan games happen for a number of different franchises, and I'd be happy to cover fan games for a lot more franchises. But today we're going to be covering specifically some Sonic fan games. This is a follow-up to my first Sonic fan games video, and there will be a part 3 of this series. So if you want some more fan games, then check out part 1, as well as part 3 when it comes out. The link will be at the end of the video. And with all that said, let's get started! So first, we're going to jump into a little bit of Sonic GT. Now, if you thought I had a lot of good things to say about Project 06, then that's nothing compared to Sonic GT. I must make this clear again, but I have not played any of the Sonic fan games I'm discussing, but from footage I've seen, Sonic GT is easily my favourite, and I'd love to play the game sometime. Now this fan game is finished, but I'm not sure which build of the game I took my notes from. I know this footage I'm showing right now though is from the latest build of the game. Now, let's properly get started. The art style is really clean, but also manages to be detailed. Accompanied by an amazing camera system that, while it could use some work, is really good. Even including, as seen on the previous shot with the grind rail, some quite cinematic camera angles. I talked about the art style in this game being clean, but everything else feels so modern. And, in itself, clean. A lot of the sound design is quite satisfying to listen to, and all the music is remixed or original. And let me tell you, this entire soundtrack is an absolute banger, all the way through, apart from maybe the cutscenes. Say thank you to Sonic 06 for giving this franchise the reputation of having amazing soundtracks, so much so that it carried over into fan games. Now, let's quickly take a look at the actual gameplay. It's completely normal Sonic gameplay, though you can't really categorize it into one of the Sonic formulae. Instead, it kind of combines them all. Let's look at this purely for someone playing the entire game as modern Sonic. They have all the moves of the classics, and all the moves of the adventure games, with some moves from the boost games. They even have the drop dash from Sonic Mania and onwards. They have silky smooth controls which perfectly complement the level design. They have the classic gameplay translated faithfully into 3D, just like the adventure games kind of tried to do. But with more of an emphasis on momentum, like Sonic Mania and Sonic CD did. Then they have the wide open spaces of frontiers to run around, but still getting from point A to point B, like other Sonic games. And combine that with the kind of shortcuts you can do in Unleashed and all the pathway options of Generations, with meaningfully different gameplay experiences on each part. And last but not least, the momentum can generate up to the speed of the boost games, as well as the kind of height you get from the air boost in Sonic Forces. Now, with modern Sonic alone, that already looks great. Now, to add even more spice, there are extra playable characters. All of them handle slightly differently, but they all also have their own abilities. Mighty has his ground pound and immunity to spikes, which really doesn't do that much, and Shadow serves as the game's hard mode, having a Chaos Kick, which while it makes for some interesting speedruns, isn't the best move, and also his handling is quite funky. But there are some secret characters. These are Classic Sonic, Metal Sonic, and Super Sonic, which means that 2/3 of this game's characters are Sonic. Wow. Now when you heard Classic Sonic, a lot of you people may have been writing this fan game off just for having him, but he isn't intrusive and doesn't distract from the normal gameplay. In fact, he's even in 3D, and he has the same levels as everybody else. And his special move is also the drop dash. And while his acceleration isn't as high as modern Sonic, his top speed is much higher. Kind of like the juxtaposition between the Boost games and the classic games. So Classic Sonic really is just modern Sonic with the momentum aspect dialed up to 11. And as a secret character, he doesn't have to be shoehorned into the story. And in fact, you don't even have to play as him. Or for that matter, you don't have to play as any character you don't want to, because you can choose which characters in which levels. This means that Classic Sonic, being a secret character, only makes the game better. Just another unlockable to, well, unlock. Then for anybody craving that Boost gameplay and wanting a more unique form of it, there's Metal Sonic, who I personally think was an absolutely genius way to implement the Boost gameplay into this game. Metal Sonic's ability is the Chaos Boost, which is just the boost. It does not work very well as an air boost, but it works amazingly as a normal boost. One thing I did not mention is that if you hit top speed for a certain amount of time, you go into the boost mode from Sonic Advance 2. The Chaos Boost sends Metal straight into it, and with all characters still having the ability to roll down slopes, even when using the boost, momentum is still at play. The strange thing about this incarnation of the boost though, is that there is no boost meter. And while I agree that Sonic Frontiers' method of doing the boost is the best if you're going to have a meter, I think Sonic GT's method of doing the boost is the best overall. This is because Metal Sonic drains rings as he used the boost. Not he has a meter refilled by rings that is separate to his ring count that drains when you use the boost. His actual ring count drains when he uses the boost, and he can still boost when he's at 0 rings. It's that if you get hit by something, it's game over. Which, in my opinion, is genius. Now looking at the last secret playable character, he also uses the idea of draining rings, that being Super Sonic. With Super Sonic you start on 50 rings and every second you lose one, so you've got to keep your rings up. But Super Sonic is a separate playable character, meaning if you run out of rings, you die, which makes him an extremely skill-based character. But at the same time he's not, because he's also still Super Sonic, meaning he's invincible and has the acceleration of modern Sonic combined with an even higher top speed than classic Sonic. And oh no, the variety doesn't stop there either. if you're playing as whichever Sonic, you have access to the elemental shields and their unique abilities. The trick system makes a return in this game also, functioning like it did in Advance 2 and Advance 3, giving you some extra height, especially in Hilltop, letting you perform some killer skips. The game is extremely replayable and extremely speedrunner friendly. In fact, speedrunning is probably the intended playstyle. While the game has a cohesive art style, it still has a lot of variety in its level themes, 2 of the levels being brought back, being Hidden Pace from Sonic Adventure 2 and Hilltop from Sonic Adventure 2, and while Ocean Paradise take a lot of inspiration from Wave Ocean, Emerald Coast, and Seaside Hill, Studiopolis, Speed Highway, respectively, they are still new levels and they still feel fresh. Then there's the story mode exclusive level, Hilltop, which is just a more hazardous hilltop with everything on fire. Oh yeah, right, we haven't discussed the story mode. This game has a full story mode with cutscenes, though mostly just PNG and text box cutscenes, and voice acting. The story just equates down to Ray got captured, go save Ray, also beat up Eggman in the process. The voice acting is also in gameplay, though I must acknowledge that the voice acting in this game isn't good. And some of Sonic's portrayal when he's talking to Shadow is off in the way that I know they have a friendly rivalry, but Sonic wouldn't just say to Shadow, "Oh, go kill yourself." Though he only said something very similar. That brings us to our last playable character, one I didn't discuss earlier, Ray. While I feel Modern Sonic is probably the most all-round best character in the game, and Metal Sonic is probably the most creative, if you're looking for the most crazy character in the game, then Ray is absolutely the one to go for. You unlock him after completing the story mode, and he works the same as he does in Sonic Mania, with his cape feather-like gliding. And you know how the spin dash translated to Sonic Adventure really awfully because of the spam dash and other stuff? Well, that's kind of how Ray's flying from Sonic Mania translates. He completely breaks levels if you're good at it. This game's HUD is a bit silly, having words like going fast and going faster plastered all over it if you're doing well. But when you perform combos of points together in this game, it activates something called the star system, and the star system essentially works like Sonic Overture's point multiplier. Or if you want another method to compare it to, then probably Sonic Adventure 2 or maybe Project 06. This contributes really well to the really tough ranking system. It's tough, but that doesn't mean it's not fair. It's points-based and balances everything fairly. Lastly, we have this game's level design. I discussed a lot of it earlier, but to put it simply, it uses the 3 rows stacked on top of each other approach of Sonic 3, combined with amazing use of the 3D space by kind of widthening that approach by 3. So there's essentially 9 pathways at all times, with branching pathways off to the side for exploration purposes only. That's all for this game, so let's get straight into the next. Now, I talked about Project 06 being the face of the fan game community, but to put it lightly, this next fan game is that, but 10 times more. Though due to how over-talked about it is, I'm going to be saying less about it, though I still do believe that it's the masterpiece everybody credits it to be. Welcome to Sonic Roboblast 2. This game is actually a mod of Doom, which is very surprising if you look at its graphics. And it has been in development since before Sonic Adventure released. And while the 2019 build is practically finished, more zones are being worked on, as well as more bosses for a later demo. It's like Sonic World from Sonic Jam, but a lot more realised, with a similar art style to Sonic Extreme, just minus the fisheye lens. So, in that way, it's a lot like Sonic Overture, one of the fan games we discussed last episode. It has a story, and the story works well, though unlike Sonic GT, it is not voice acted, and doesn't continue throughout the game. There is just one cutscene at the beginning of the game, and that's it. The moveset is the exact same as the classics, just Sonic does not have the insta-shield, drop dash, or super peel out. But he does have the jump dash and the homing attack. The homing attack is used sparingly and doesn't quite work like the momentum homing attack in Sonic GT, but it works similar enough as to where it does not feel stop and go in that regard. Now, when watching a speedrun of this game, I and a friend discovered that the jump dash absolutely cracks this game wide open, including exposing some of the glitchiness of the levels. In my opinion, this is just because of the Doom engine, but this is still something that could and really needs to be improved. It also, though exposed, this game is extremely replayable and extremely speedrunner friendly, with a good number of playable characters to its name. On the note of playable characters, I think this may be a good time to acknowledge this game's amazing modding support. It's extremely modding friendly, and people, yes, have made loads of mods for it. Especially character mods, though some people even make level packs. And probably its most famous mod is Sonic Roboblast 2 Kart, where somebody made a full kart racer using Sonic Roboblast 2. And it is absolutely insane. And due to being based off of Sonic Roboblast 2, a lot of these mods end up looking amazing. Which brings me on to my next point. This game's Sonic Extreme-like 2D, 3D hybrid art style is really nice. And with the stunning pixel art and relatively crisp animation, this game ends up having a very unique and lifelike art style, which I really appreciate personally. The game has lots of hidden Easter eggs, often related to either obscure Sonic content or Sonic memes. One of them being seen right here, with the special stages being based off of Nights into Dreams, a game made by Sonic Team, which essentially doomed Sega as a hardware manufacturer. As for this game's level design, if you want to interact with it, it is amazing. But a lot of the interacting you do with it is optional. So for a minimalist who wants to just get through the game, the level design is horrible, but either for a speedrunner or for a completionist, the level design is absolutely amazing. I'd say the most universal aspect of the level design, though, is the enemy placement, because the enemies serve an actual threat to you. If you land on them without the homing attack, you even maintain all your momentum. But the thing about the enemies, even though they're in a 3D space and serve as a threat to you, that doesn't mean they completely break the flow of the game. No, you're able to flow through them, so they feel really fairly placed. This game also has a great amount of customization. One of those things being a complete overhaul to the aesthetic, which you can just turn on whenever you like, which I think would be great for repeat playthroughs. While I feel the pixel art and 3D hybrid is a lot less smooth, I personally prefer it as an aesthetic to this other one. That other one being replacing all the sprites with Sonic R style 3D models, which is an amazing option and must have taken a truckload of effort to include. But that's gonna be all for this section. Next up is a fan game by Noah Koppelman, forgive me if I pronounced that wrong, and it is a remake of the Game Gear game Sonic and Tails 2, or Sonic Triple Trouble. This game answers the question to what if this game was made on the Mega Drive, which, as we can see by this fan game, it did have a lot of potential to. And with it not getting a Master System point with a better screen, I think it deserves this. Welcome to Sonic Triple Trouble 16-bit. Somehow, Noah managed to pull off the miracle that Sonic Mania did, and managed to make this game feel like an equal, less a sequel, to Sonic 3 and Knuckles. It feels like the lost third part of that game, instead of a sequel to it though. This is in part to two factors. A lot of the sprite art and the general aesthetic being reused from Sonic and Knuckles, though having a slightly more Sonic 1-like tone. And there not being a new playable character added, which seems to have happened for every 2D Sonic game. Trip for Sonic Superstars, Mighty and Ray for Sonic Mania, Amy for Sonic Advance. But this is counterbalanced by the new sprite art being amazing and the drop dash being added to Sonic's moveset. Because remember, this is meant to be following up Sonic and Knuckles, not Sonic Mania. Also for the Sonic and Tails combo, it gives you the same ability you have in Sonic Mania's Encore mode of being able to switch between the two characters anytime, which with Sonic Triple Trouble's level design being made for both Sonic and Tails ends up being genuinely great. Another good thing is the physics are mostly spot on, and the bosses are extremely varied and reimagined amazingly. Same with the level environments. And it makes this game go from feeling like a cheap game that had amazing ambition to actually a really epic game. Including the fact they included story beats within acts to make them different in Act 2 than Act 1, though it ends up being very restricted by it being a remake, because it can't go too crazy with them, meaning it actually does this worse than Sonic and Knuckles. One thing they also does similar to those games is... Now, the thing is, Triple Trouble 16-bit make the most of it being a remake, especially with the story. Now, they wanted to provide a Knuckles campaign, and they also wanted Knuckles to get through a story without looking like an absolute dumb guy. So, they made it so that Knuckles' role in the story was actually replaced by Metal Sonic, faking being Knuckles. And with the addition of the prologue as well as much better cutscenes, the storytelling ends up actually being leagues above Sonic and Knuckles, which is quite surprising. And from what I know, it actually includes some, at the moment in development, secret characters. Though beta builds of them are already out yet, those being Metal Sonic and Fang the Sniper. And that was all for this section, guys. That was all for today, guys. This was the Historical Gamer, and remember to like if you liked the video, and subscribe if you've liked multiple. Before we go today, I'd like to say a huge thank you to the creators of all these fan games, as well as the channels who provided me footage. Thank you so much for watching, and bye!